from Auschwitz. And the president vice president at that time walked the grounds of Auschwitz and laid a wreath. And as he was at the death wall, where so many people were machine gunned, 2 Marines assisted the vice president with that wreath laying. And tears started to come down the vice president's cheeks and Mrs. Bush, as well as our U.S. Marines. And as the president exited to go into the death block where so many people were tortured, he turned back to me and said, "I'd like their names." And I went back to the Marines and they actually apologized. They said, "We're sorry, sir, we're not supposed to show emotion." And I told them how proud the vice president was that our people in uniform could show emotion and feel the feelings of this terrible and awful place that we helped to liberate. And then right after that, we went to the Children's Cancer Hospital, and he and Mrs. Bush were surrounded by some children of the very age of Robin, the daughter who was taken by a terrible disease of leukemia. And yet they broke down again. And as they opened books that Mrs. Bush had brought, and we had brought medical equipment, these are the type of people the Bushes were. And this is the type of leadership. And that really touched all of us on the staff to see how invested he was as a human being and the power he knew he had and the judiciousness of that power and the humanization of that power. That's what we saw on that trip, and that touched me all the years that I've known him. And I've seen him event after event exhibit that same type of leadership.
Brad, thank you. Patrick O'Carroll, 26 years in the Secret Service. I'm confident you saw a lot of things you can't tell us about, but of the highlights, one you could?
Absolutely, Shepard. As I'm watching the monitor here, I'm seeing the motorcade going through Houston, and it reminds me of all the different motorcades that I was on with at the time, Vice President Bush, and then Secret Service was with them as President Bush. And I guess probably the most notable story is that right after the election, or not the election, the inauguration in 1981, I had the opportunity of driving in that motorcade. In fact, I drove the limousine that Vice President and Mrs. Bush were in. And as we're going down Pennsylvania Avenue, Vice President Bush was told that up in a few feet we're going to be opening up the roof on the car. And he turned to Mrs. Bush and he said, "Hey, babe, I told you I'd take you places." And at that point, the roof opened up and the crowd started to roar and the two of them stood up. And I got to say, to this day, I still remember as if it was yesterday.
How do you feel about what we've seen today and over the past week?
I must say that I'm very emotional about it. One, I'm very proud of the fact that there's a tribute to this hero and this, public servant that was a model to all of us. I've modeled my career after him. I'm sure many of my colleagues have done the same thing. And it's bittersweet. It's an end of an era, and another at the same time. If you took a look at the cathedral yesterday, that entire front row is being protected by the men and women of the Secret Service. So it reminds me of my former career, and in many ways, I go back to the days when I was with Vice President and then President Bush.
Patrick, thank you. Brad Blakeman and Les Shorba as well. Thanks to all of you. You may notice that there have been a lot of Houstonians lining the side of the road. The motorcade route was in the papers this morning. They're following along, and we'll follow the former president's body as it returns to College Station for internment at his presidential library as Fox News Channel's coverage continues throughout the day.
My hope is that in remembering the life of George Herbert Walker Bush and in honoring his accomplishments, we will see that we are really praising what is best about our nation, the nation he dearly loved and whose values he embodied.
Undoubtedly, when the last words are written on him, they will certainly include this, that the fulfillment of a complete life cannot be achieved without service to others.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Tears honor those we love. George Bush was never afraid to shed tears, and so today I bid you to follow his example.
We rejoice, Mr. President, that you are safely tucked in now and through the ages with God's loving arms around you. Because our glory, George, was to have had you as our president and as such a friend.
After days of mourning and paying tribute, America says its final farewell to former President George H.W. Bush. Welcome to Outnumbered Overtime. I'm Harris Faulkner. We pick up the coverage where we are watching together live now as the hearse carrying the former president is traveling to a railway facility just north of Houston, Texas. That's where a departure ceremony is expected this hour. We are covering this live now. Bush's casket will be loaded onto a train called Bush 4141 for a 70-mile journey yet to his presidential library at Texas A&M University. All of this happening this hour. He will be buried in a private ceremony later this afternoon, right beside his late wife, Barbara Bush, and their young daughter, Robin, who died when she was just 3 years old. Rick Leventhal joins us now live from St. Martin's Episcopal Church, where the service just wrapped up and this latest journey began. And Rick, one thing I would say is that it just felt so personal and very Texas with touches of that beautiful music.
It was a remarkable service, and the exit of George H.W. Bush with the Joint Military Honor Guard carrying his casket out here to the hearse. I don't know that anyone didn't have chills when that scene was playing out. A very different scene now, Harris. Obviously, there are buses here to pick up the 1,000 or so invited guests who were inside St. Martin's Episcopal Church for this funeral service here in Texas. A lot of favorite sons and a lot of very close friends and family of George Herbert Walker Bush inside, and they heard some very moving eulogies from James Baker, who said he had been a friend to the president for more than 60 years. He called him a truly beautiful human being, a charter member of the greatest generation. Here's more from James Baker.
He had a very effective way of letting me know when the discussion was over. He would look at me and he'd say, "Baker, if you're so smart, why am I president and you're not?"
Humor was obviously a very important part of this funeral service as well, and George Prescott Bush, the oldest grandson, also mixed some humor into his eulogy as he talked about how competitive his grandfather was and games of horseshoes and that sort of thing. And here's a bit more from George P.
He left a simple yet profound legacy to his children, to his grandchildren, and to this country: service. Undoubtedly, when the last words are written on him, they will certainly include this: that the fulfillment of a complete life cannot be achieved without service to others.
The president was a big fan of country music. Reba McEntire sang, and so did the Oak Ridge Boys. They sang Amazing Grace, and before they did that, one of the members of the band said that George H.W. Bush fancied himself a great bass singer. He was not, and that elicited quite a bit of laughter, Harris, from the crowd here, who all were touched by so much from this man's extraordinary life, and it was pretty special to be a part of it, even if we were outside the church, Harris.
Well, technically, so many of us were outside, and no matter where you watch this from, it was the voice of each person who stood there and told all those personal and sometimes humorous stories. But again, what really resonated, and we saw this a bit yesterday at the National Cathedral, but it felt like so much more because they were more local voices, were just those that were singing, just really, really leaving an imprint on your heart and this final journey home for our 41st president.
And Harris, so many people emphasize the things that were so important to George H.W. Bush, and that was family, and loyalty, and dedication to this country, service to this nation, which he gave for so many decades. Virtually his entire life was in service to America, and that couldn't be more clear after what we've seen over the last few days.
So beautiful. Rick Leventhal, thank you very much for telling us your perspective there in person outside the church. This day, of course, will take some time as it unfolds, and we will stay on the situation. We're told that the motorcade should arrive at the depot for Bush 4141, the train that will take him to College Station, Texas, in about 10 minutes or so. In other news that we are watching while that motorcade makes its way, the Dow has taken another very sharp dip, and we're going to take a look at that with you now. It's down nearly 500 points on this Thursday, amid lingering doubts over a trade deal between the U.S. and China. The arrest of a Chinese tech firm executive threatening to spark another flare-up in tensions between the world's top two economies. I want to bring in now Susan Lee of the Fox Business Network. This is breaking news at this hour. Why is this happening?
Well, Harris, we've seen 8 600-point-plus moves this year already, the latest being on Tuesday when the Dow lost 800 points. That's the fourth largest single points losses in the Dow's history. And right now the concerns, I would say, are threefold. As you mentioned, the U.S.-China trade truce with the arrest of Huawei, which is one of the largest technology companies in China. Its CFO, also the daughter of the founder in Canada, reportedly for extradition to the U.S. That's not going to help the trade truce. In fact, investors don't think it's going to hold, and that could escalate tensions further. Also concerns about global growth. We're talking about Brexit once again over on the European Union side. And then it's about higher interest rates. Higher interest rates that may impact the U.S. consumer going forward, and the 10-year Treasury yield, which actually has come down because investors want to run for the safety of government bonds. But there's a distortion effect. I won't get into the technicalities of it all, but basically it could be a recessionary indicator. But I want to keep things in perspective for you, Harris, and your viewers. We're 10% away from record levels that we hit this year, and we've quintupled from the lows back in 2008 during the global financial crisis.
Right, and people who are watching and who aren't going to pop open their 401ks and make any decisions just in the last 3 or 4 weeks know that that was a decade ago, and things will pitch up and down. But I want to ask you just about 2018, because now we're wrapping up the year, and all of those gains, I believe your network's been reporting, our sister, that those gains were wiped away several weeks ago. What does this latest dip do for people's retirements and investments at this point for 18?
Yeah, well, it's not great, obviously, but it depends on your time horizon. If you're looking to retire maybe in the next 12 months, things may be a little tense for you. But if you have 5, 10, 20 years, you have a lot more to play with. And I would say, you know, markets do tend to go up. It's an inflationary environment that we're in, and you have to keep things in perspective. As you mentioned, we're 10 years from the global financial crisis, and that has a lot of people concerned since we are in the longest bull market run in history, and we do have bull markets not lasting 10 years. So a lot of investors don't want to be caught without the chair when the music stops.
All right, 2 points to hit with you. We're right before the Christmas season now. And what this does to consumer confidence. I know that there's not a huge marriage between Wall and Broad and Main Street, but at the end of the year when people are estimating what taxes will be and trying to budget for the first of the year, those two things can come into play.
Of course. How wealthy do you feel in your walls right now? How confident are you that you'll find a job, you'll be able to pay for your health care, for your education, and go out and spend during the Christmas season? We had a blowout Thanksgiving week. Sales went up 40%. Consumer confidence is at 18-year highs, and we're forecasting the first $1 trillion holiday shopping period in the country's history. So right now the consumer is feeling confident. You're having 200,000 jobs created each and every month. That doesn't sound like a recessionary environment, but I guess the markets, you know, they budget and plan for the future. And right now they're concerned about what's going to happen, not just next week, next month, but 18 months from here.
Last quick point, the tariffs and where we go from here. There's the ceasefire between China and the United States, and then we learned, well, maybe that wasn't a firm deal. Real quickly, where are we?
Well, you know, the ceasefire, China yesterday came out with something very important. They finally acknowledged the conversation and the negotiation and the 90-day timetable. They said the talks were very successful, which I think is very optimistic from the Chinese side, and they're going to adhere to that 90-day trade truce.
All right. Susan Lee, the Fox Business Network will continue to watch this. While you and I were talking, it seems to have stabilized. I don't know if there's any connection there. Thank you, Susan. Another Fox News alert now. A bipartisan group of senators has just introduced a resolution to hold the Saudi Crown Prince accountable for the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. The measure states the lawmakers believe Mohammed bin Salman was, quote, complicit in Khashoggi's death. Joining me now, Niall Gardner, director of the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom. Thank you for being with me, Niall. What does this mean going forward? The president has said it could have happened this way. It may not have happened this way based on intelligence, whether or not the Crown Prince ordered Khashoggi's killing. Members on the Hill are saying, no, they see it another way. What does it mean?
Well, this is certainly a very strong statement coming from key members of the U.S. Senate. I think it sends a very clear message to the administration, urging the administration to hold the Saudi Crown Prince to account for his actions. And undoubtedly, the Saudi government does have to be held to account by the United States government. Already, you have seen 17 Saudi officials being sanctioned by the United States. More officials will likely follow, I think, in terms of being sanctioned by the US. But at the same time, I think the administration has to look at the big picture and fully take into consideration the fact that Saudi Arabia is a vitally important US strategic partner in the Middle East, especially in terms of confronting the Iranian threat. So I think the US policy will continue to be very balanced, actually, taking into consideration some very complex strategic factors here, especially the broader clash with Iran. And Saudi Arabia is vital, I think, in terms of siding with the United States against the Iranian threat. So that is going to continue to be the big long-term priority for the White House in the coming months.
With all due respect, sanctioning the aides and the officials and those types of people well below the Crown Prince, a whole different ball of wax than the Senate saying, no, 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 we have a resolution that's going to hold the Crown Prince accountable. I'm curious to see what that exactly could look like. Is there room, Niall, to be able to do all of those things that you just laid out? You've got the proxy war in Yemen. You've got al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula on the ground in Yemen as well. So we have some things to get done. Is there room to also say, Saudi Arabia, what are you going to do with this Crown Prince? Isn't there anybody else you could put there?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, in the view of the Senate, and it's important to remember this, of course, is a non-binding resolution, but it's a powerful statement, I think, from the U.S. Senate here to the administration. But I think it's it's important also to bear in mind that with regard to the Crown Prince, no amount of U.S. pressure is going to, remove the Crown Prince from his position of authority in Saudi Arabia.
If we cut arms
the United States can make
if we start to get tough on the money, you don't think so?
I don't think that the United States would be seeking to, remove the Crown Prince from his position of power. That is a matter, of course, for the Saudi Arabian government and their people to decide ultimately. But certainly, I think that what you are seeing certainly is a growing international isolation of the Crown Prince. You're seeing that on many fronts. But it is vital at the same time. The United States, I think, continues to work with Saudi Arabia, especially in the ongoing war in Yemen. This war in Yemen is being fueled by Iran and Iranian proxy organizations, movements, especially above all the Houthi.
But Saudi Arabia has had a hand in this too. I mean, when you talk about millions of people starving, that's on everybody's hands.
I think that, the situation in Yemen is incredibly complex, but without a doubt, I think the number one actor in all of this responsible for the humanitarian crisis in Yemen is the Iranian regime, which has been funding a brutal war in the country, funding a terrorist organization, overthrowing the legitimate elected government of Yemen. And so I do think Iran has to be held to account. Certainly there will be pressure on Saudi Arabia as well. But let's not forget that it's the Iranians who are behind so much of the brutality and the humanitarian situation in Yemen at this time. And it's Tehran that has to be held fully to account on this.
Were you surprised to see this, or do you see it as forward movement with this resolution if it passes in the Senate to hold the Crown Prince accountable?
I think there's a great deal of anger in the U.S. Senate over the way in which the Saudis have conducted themselves. And a lot of this, indignation that is aimed at the Saudi Arabian government is fully justified, actually. And you cannot have the state-sanctioned murder of a journalist by the Saudi regime, and also a U.S. resident here. And so this does send a very clear signal to Saudi Arabia. But the reality is that sometimes U.S. partners do not have stellar human rights records. Another example is Turkey, for example. And certainly the United States, I think, should certainly condemn any human rights violations, but at the same time, the US-Saudi partnership is vitally important. It's a partnership that in the long term will save US lives in terms of constraining Iran's ambitions in the Middle East. So we cannot end that partnership, but at the same time, we have to hold the Saudi Arabian government to account.
Niall Gardner getting us to look at it from a Gestalt view, 37,000 feet, seeing all the options on the table and variables in the mix. I appreciate your time from the Heritage Foundation today. Thank you
very much.
And this Fox News alert as well. A short time ago, the Senate followed the House and has now approved a 2-week stopgap spending bill. That means the government will be funded for another 2 weeks, putting off that looming threat of a government shutdown through December 21st. Boy, that time is going to tick quickly, won't it? President Trump has threatened a partial government shutdown if Congress does not approve $5 billion for the border wall system. And we know from polling and surveys this is important to the American people. He ran on it. That's a promise he made, and a lot of people want to see it kept. Earlier today, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said she will not support that amount of border wall funding, even if offered a solution for so-called dreamers, DACA, who have been in limbo since President Trump eliminated that program earlier this year. We're watching all the news being made. Plus, we are moments now from the hearse expected to arrive at the rail yard, where a special train will take our 41st president to his final resting place. Live from Spring, Texas. All of it right here on Overtime. Stay tuned.
In Baltimore, a community sees new life rise from ruin. In Southern California, a small family business becomes a beacon of hope. In Seattle, people with disabilities create success and shatter barriers. Day in, day out, people prove that when we work as one, we have the power to create better futures for us all.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Girl, Pepto Ultra Coating will treat your stomach right.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Try Pepto with Ultra Coating.
I was tired of using 12 vendors. Then I learned that CareerBuilder has everything. A single source to find candidates, marketing tools to engage them, and the fastest background screening on the market. It's not just efficient, it's smart. CareerBuilder, work can work.
I just want to find a used car without getting ripped off.
Start at thenewcarfax.com.
Show me used trucks with great deals.
Pretty cool.
Show me the Carfax.
Start your used car search at theallnewcarfax.com.
Okay, everyone, our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Great tasting Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure, now up to 30 grams of protein for strength and energy.
Your insurance rates skyrocket after a scratch so small you could fix it with a pen. How about using that pen to sign up for new insurance instead?
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise their rates because of their first accident.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Sometimes you just know when you've hit a home run. That's why I use Blue Emu Pain Relief Spray. It's fast-acting, odor-free, and it soothes all my aches and pain. And if you're like me, you'll also love the non-greasy, deep-penetrating Blue Emu Cream. Take it from me. It works fast and you won't stink.
The salute that captivated the nation. After Bob Dole's moving tribute to George H.W. Bush, he reflects on his relationship with the former president on the next Your World.
If a dirty CPAP is making you sick, you're not alone.
I was getting sinus infections because I wasn't cleaning my CPAP properly, and that continued until I got my SoClean.
SoClean is the world's first automated hands-free CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. It kills 99.9% of all CPAP germs and bacteria that can build up in your mask, hose, and reservoir.
I don't have to push a button or anything. I just put the mask in the chamber, close the lid, and it runs automatically. SoClean has been a lifesaver.
SoClean works on all popular CPAP machines and masks. Try it risk-free for 30 days. Even shipping is free. Call 1-800-296-7286 to take advantage of this limited time offer.
If you get a CPAP machine, don't even take it home until you have your SoClean machine right with it, because they are a marriage made in heaven.
Try SoClean risk-free for 30 days. Even shipping is free. Call 1-800-296-7286 or go to trysoclean.com.
It has been an emotional and beautiful Thursday. Look at your screen now. It's a split screen. We are awaiting a ceremony. It started in Spring, Texas, where a funeral train will carry the casket of former President George H.W. Bush to his final resting place, about a 2.5 hour train ride away to College Station. Moments ago, that funeral service in Houston ended. Casey Stiegel is live in Spring, Texas, where the motorcade has left and is on its way, and we're told should arrive at any moment. Casey?
Yeah, Harris, it's on its way to this location, which is in Spring, Texas, a suburb of Houston, and it has started pouring rain, so this is going to be a soggy send-off. But, you know, this is a final special touch that we understand the president himself actually had a little bit of a hand in helping plan, down to the menu that the family is going to be enjoying for lunch on the train ride up there. Now, as I'm talking, you can see that you have honor guard members moving into place, and we did get that warning not long ago that the motorcade should be arriving shortly. But Harris, I want to kind of explain, if I may, what's going to happen once they arrive. The car that they're marching toward, you can see straight ahead, painted like an American flag. That is going to be the car where the casket will be loaded up into. And then you see that window off to the right of the entrance with the stairs, that black window. Well, that is plexiglass, and there is also one on the other side of it, and we understand there is a light above that window, and the casket will be placed right there. It will be illuminated, so it will be very easy to spot as this train is making its way up to College Station, Texas. So the family is going to be in the car just beyond that car that's going to carry the casket. Immediate family, President George W. Bush and Jeb and Neil, they will be in the car immediately behind, and then the rest of the family. They've got a pretty large group that's heading up to College Station. They're going to be in the cars that follow. Now, powering this train, the signature 4141 engine. Look at this. It is painted in the scheme of Air Force One, and it was dedicated in 2005. Mr. and Mrs. Bush took this photo inside the cab at the time of that dedication. The train is scheduled to depart right from here at the top of the hour. That's 2 o'clock Eastern. It will take about 2.5 hours to get up to College Station, slowing down through a few smaller Texas towns along the route, giving those folks a chance to see the president before arriving in College Station there up at the presidential library. So even though
Casey,
it is raining, we on our way in. Yes.
I just wanted to step in. Can we pop that map back up? Because you were talking about all the towns, and people can get a really, I wanted to slow you down because you're doing such a great job telling us exactly overpasses. I mean, it's been a really beautiful moment for people to be involved in this journey. And now you see, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 cities that this will go through until it reaches, maybe 10 or 11 until it reaches College Station. That's a lot of people and a lot of love along the way.
It really is, Harris, and we should tell you that we're already seeing images emerging from some of those towns, people that started camping out very early this morning in lawn chairs. They wanted to get their spot, and like I said, at least right in this location, it's pouring rain, but that doesn't matter. It's also quite cold for Houston, and so that doesn't matter. The people that we talked to in line last night at the church that were waiting to go see the president lying in repose at his church, it was freezing cold and windy out there last night, and sometimes the wait was more than 2 hours just to get on a shuttle bus at the Overflow Church to shuttle people over to see the president lying in repose. And they were braving the elements, and they said that they didn't even think twice about it, because this is a chance to stop and have a front row seat to American history and also honor a great leader.
And this is, it's history layered on top of history. President Lincoln. I mean, we haven't seen this. This is something that was done previously so that the masses could take part in all of this. And this has really got a very personal touch to it as it rolls through Texas, because of the legacy, not just of this president, but of his entire family and its leadership there. We saw the grandson, George P. Bush, today speaking. He is the General Land Commissioner for the state of Texas. So you've got several generations of Bush leadership in that state. Casey Siegel, we will come back to you as the news warrants. We'll keep this picture up. Thank you so much. I want to welcome in now Ed Rollins, former campaign manager for the Reagan-Bush campaign in 1984. You and I have been talking about the layering of history now. The Union Pacific originally commissioned this locomotive for the Presidential Library, Ed. They titled it Train, Tracks of the Iron Horse. And at one point, after a little bit of training, I understand the former president actually got in the engineer's seat and drove for a couple of miles.
Wouldn't doubt it a bit. He was a hands-on kind of guy, and obviously probably had great fun doing that. He was a man who lived a great life, and his post-presidency, in which was sadly ended by a defeat, but he went on to basically do wonderful, wonderful things as a community leader and as a fundraiser for some great charities. And he wasn't a bitter man. He became great friends with Bill Clinton, and basically the man who beat him and defeated him, and obviously made great contributions and lived an enormous life as an ex-president, in addition to having been a great president.
His exit has been enormous as well, just in terms of the accessibility that the American public has had. 12,000 people for lying in state in the Capitol Rotunda. And I don't know, Ed, if you can see just on the horizon there, we're picking up the motorcade now. As they pull into this, you heard Casey Siegel saying that they will have a departure ceremony on this tarmac. You don't really call it a tarmac, although if you can see the front of the train, it does look a lot like Air Force One.
Yes, it does.
What are your thoughts about just how orchestrated this is? I understand that the former president, of course, he knew that this train would be used in this way and wanted it to be.
Well, the best part about this is he gets to go back and let little people touch him. We've become very cynical about politics with all the daily television and social media, what have you. But this is little people. I remember we took a train with President Reagan through Ohio. It was the first time the train had been used in a presidential campaign since Truman. And you get a real sense there'd be 25,000, 30,000 people in these little towns. And that's what you'll see today. Everybody in these little towns are going to come out to have a sense of history of watching this man go by. And the unique thing about President Bush is he went back to Texas, not to basically be a politician, not to end up being president. It was a very, very blue state at the time that he did. He went there to basically strike out on business. They could have gone
in
to
the
Wall
40s,
Street.
the late 40s,
right?
Yeah.
And he ran for Congress, ran for the Senate initially, lost, came back, represented for 4 years Houston, the one congressional district that was Republican in the state. Tried to run again in 70 and lost, and then became a very dear ally of President Nixon's, who appointed him to a variety of positions, from party chairman to ambassador to the United Nations to ambassador to China and what have you. So
you know what I love about hearing you talk about those points in history? You bring up when there was not success.
Absolutely.
And you point to that. Why is that so important with this particular individual? Because he had such great success.
Because he never quit. I mean, the interesting thing to me about him is that he wasn't even a contender with Reagan. I mean, he'd won the Iowa caucus, which was nothing at that point in time. Reagan crushed him after that, 2-3 to 1 the votes. He wasn't a front runner to be the vice president. It was kind of a spur of the moment. They'd actually never met. They had met in a debate, but they'd never had a sit-down session until after Reagan had made the next morning. And I remember flying back on the plane, coming back here with Bush to Houston. We dropped him off on the way back to California. And he was so enthused. He was so appreciative of the president choosing him and gave him another whole political life.
How about that?
So,
this will be the 8th funeral train in U.S. history and the first since Dwight D. Eisenhower's body traveled from the National Cathedral in Washington through 7 states to his Kansas hometown in Abilene 49 years ago. And now we have the motorcade of George H.W. Bush pulling in for a presidential send-off from Spring, Texas to College Station. It takes about 2.5 hours for this train ride. So later this afternoon, he will arrive there. That's where the Presidential Library and Center, which bear his name, are located. And so people along that route of that map that we had shown you, and Casey Stegall was talking in detail about how people can line up along the way and they know when the train is coming up and down the tracks. And you hear Ed Rollins talking about that personal touch that the president must have foreseen and that they have gotten in the last day and a half. And so all of that will come into play in just the next few minutes. You saw the color guard come out during Casey Stegall's report. And now we have several people in the depot parking lot here of the train that will pull off, Bush 4141, that will pull off carrying the family members who are aboard. And there it is. It's got the similar colors, Ed Rollins, as Air Force One.
It's the Air Force Blue.
Yes.
He never forgot, he obviously was a young man, 18-year-old. He went right out of high school, went into the Navy during World War II, volunteered, became a fighter pilot. He never forgot the military. He loved the military. I was on an aircraft carrier with him when the old chief, who was his chief when he was a young boy, was there. Mm-hmm. The old guy looked like Popeye with 1,000 things on him, still a sailor, and he'd been there for 45 years, so never forgot the people over there.
We are going to now pause for one moment to let our Fox broadcast stations join us. This is Fox News coverage of the funeral of President George H.W. Bush in Texas. I'm Harris Faulkner covering it from New York, and you see the motorcade pulling into view now. Let me tell you what is so special historically about what you're watching. So the president's remains his casket will be put onto a special train, which originally was made for his Presidential Library and Center in College Station, Texas, the campus of Texas A&M. It will then travel aboard that train with family members for only the 9th funeral in train U.S. history at a presidential level to see this happen. So it will go to College Station, and the funeral will happen there. It's a very private ceremony that happened earlier. Rather, a ceremony will happen when it arrives, this train, in College Station, and then the burial of our 41st president. I say history on top of history because he joins just 8 others in our U.S. history to have this happen. President Lincoln, all the way through Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was 49 years ago. So not only is this rare and special, it is also a way for people to see what's happening in real time along the way. I want to bring in Arkansas Congressman French Hill, who served as Assistant Secretary of Treasury under President George H.W. Bush from 1989 to 91. Congressman, you're with me?
I am. Harris, nice to see you.
Oh, yes. Actually, you and I may not get to see each other on camera for the audience because we are going to concentrate now on what is happening live, and our broadcast stations have joined us too. This is a pertinent moment in history because this is the final journey home. Congressman.
Well, George Bush was truly a great American. He loved this country, he loved his family, and there's no better final resting place than Texas A&M University for George Bush. Duty, honor, country, that epitomizes the Texas Aggies. He loved the Texas band, he loved the Texas Corps, and he selected A&M as his presidential library, and it will be a beautiful place for him to rest to eternity.
You no doubt have been following the memorials that have been going on this week, and obviously the National Cathedral funeral yesterday. Today was very different and personal. Your thoughts?
Well, this was their church in Houston, their friends, people that had empowered them and supported them for 50 years there in the Houston community, that George and Barbara Bush, this was their home. And so, of course, it was more personal. And that was a beautiful tribute by Secretary Baker. And it combined, I thought, very favorably with the majesty that we saw in the National Cathedral yesterday in Washington.
You know, I'm straining to read that board that is up there. You've got a split screen right now because you're seeing people who are gathering near the parking lot where this is. You've got the color guard there as well. You have the train, and now we are waiting just seconds from now to see the motorcade pull in. But all the people outside and along the route of this, some 10 cities along the way once that train pulls off. We have some activity there in the parking lot, and I'm going to ask my crew to let me know when you see the first car pull into screen, because I'll lower my voice, and Congressman Hill, we will watch and listen together. But before that happens, I was talking about the history of this and the vision that it took to incorporate this into his journey home. We've only seen this 8 other times in the U.S. history using a train such as this.
Well, this beautiful train engine, painted in the colors of Air Force One, was actually painted in my district in North Little Rock, Arkansas, at the Union Pacific facility there, and it's been in storage there waiting for this historic moment. I went out and had a chance to look at her about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's a beautiful engine, and it's just completely fitting that this engine once again pulls into the station at College Station with George Bush on one final trip. He loved it. We had Union Pacific train take all the guests to the opening of the George Bush Presidential Library at Texas A&M, so it seems particularly fitting and beautiful that that last ride is with the Union Pacific on the 4141.
Well, and I know you talk about it being painted in your district. I know that it is very rare for them to paint one of these trains, Union Pacific, any other color than yellow.
Well, that's their color, that's their trademark, but they love George Bush. George Bush really wanted this, and I think it's a fitting, as I say, tribute, and it's fascinating to see the Air Force One colors and the number 4141. I was just so stunned when I saw it up close and personal with a fresh coat of paint. It was so inspirational.
Yes, I did not know the detail that it had been painted in your district, and that you had actually been. Have you been inside this train? I mean, you can give us some details about what is going on with 4141 as the motorcade pulls up.
I have not been inside that engine, but I can tell you it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work by the men and women in North Little Rock, Arkansas at Union Pacific.
The motorcade arriving now, and the nation has watched in the last 24 hours together the ceremonies, the memorializing of this president. But this has a finality to it now, Congressman Hill, because we know that this is the final route to his resting place, and it will go through several cities, as we've been sharing with our viewers, on its way to College Station for 2.5 hours. People already lined up. We have cameras in all those places, and we can see what is going on ahead of time. Congressman Hill, if you would be so kind as to stand by, I also have my friend Ed Rollins standing by on set with me. I want to bring in Ron Kaufman, President George H.W. Bush's former White House political director. Ron, you're with me?
I sure am, Harris.
Are you where you can see the screen right now?
Yes, ma'am.
We are watching this then, and we will choreograph for our audience together what is happening. This is a departure ceremony, and the last that we will see as the president leaves his remains and family leave aboard this special train. I want to get your thoughts.
Well, that train is so right, as Congressman Hill said. It's terrific. Congressman French said, it's terrific. We were on it, as he mentioned, going down from Houston to College Station for the opening of the library. It's an awesome train. It's more than just the engine. The whole train is configured to be like Harry Truman's train in a way. And everyone on it is fabulous. And I'll tell you this, President Bush is very happy right now. There's no place he'd rather be on this ride than being on 4141.
Ron,
and I'm sure that
I'm going to step in for just a moment. Let's all watch and listen. Lower our voices.
Steve could get him.
importance of watching this with a natural sound there, and we wanted to let that breathe. I will again lower my voice. This takes a few moments for them to load the casket onto the funeral car and to prepare everybody inside to take their seats for the procession, the family, everyone to sit down. And in that time, I want to welcome back my friend Ed Rollins. And, you know, Ed, as we watch this, this is the final journey, and it is so purposeful with the front car painted as Air Force One. I've been looking a little bit at social media to see what people are feeling and thinking at this time, and the expression of that plexiglass in this car so that you can see that flag-draped casket as it goes through towns is purposeful and meaningful.
Well, it's an experience. People will see this afternoon and talk about the rest of their life. The wonderful thing about all of this is that George H.W. Bush and Ron Kaufman was his most loyal staff person, was with him forever, and he could add to these comments. But the reality is that George H.W. had his presidency cut short by Bill Clinton. Over the years, he's done wonderful things since then, and I think people are now starting, as they historically do, reflect back on a presidency and what was good and what was not as effective as it might have been. And my sense is this is his second look, and people are going to remember him fondly. He was a great president, he was a great man, and a great model for any president in the future. And I think that's what's going to happen after all of this.
All right, you mentioned Ron Kaufman. He's with us. I'll speak back with both of you in just a moment, but let's watch this.